Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF, initiated on 7 October 2001, stands as one of the most consequential and transformative military campaigns of the 21st century, an operation born from shock, fear, geopolitical necessity, and the fervent determination of the United States to dismantle the networks responsible for the 9/11 attacks. More than a conventional war, OEF became an evolving, multi-theater global counterterrorism architecture, centered primarily in Afghanistan, but extending its reach into the Philippines, the Horn of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and beyond. To understand what actually happened requires digging past the simplified narratives of America invaded to fight terrorists into the layered political decisions, intelligence failures, battlefield innovations, nation-building struggles, diplomatic maneuvers, and unintended consequences that define the mission from 2001 to 2014. At its origin, Operation Enduring Freedom was built around two immediate goals: destroy Al-Qaeda Sanctuary in Afghanistan and remove the Taliban regime that sheltered Osama bin Laden. The strategy that unfolded was unprecedented, a fusion of CIA paramilitary teams, U.S. Special Operations Forces, precision air power, and alliances with Afghan anti-Taliban militias. The early months of the campaign resumed a fast, decentralized, intelligence-driven assault that bypassed conventional invasion tactics. The Taliban, lacking sophisticated weaponry and unable to counter U.S. air power, began collapsing city by city as Northern Alliance fighters advanced with American guidance. Within 2 months, Kabul fell. By December 2001, Kandahar, the Taliban's birthplace, had surrendered, and many U.S. officials declared the mission effectively won. But hidden beneath the early success was an unfolding strategic miscalculation. While OEF toppled the Taliban government swiftly, Al-Qaeda's core leadership escaped, slipping across the mountainous border into Pakistan. The Battle of Tora Bora in December 2001 became emblematic of what went wrong. Despite heavy bombing and local militia support, the U.S. relied too heavily on Afghan allies to block escape routes. Osama bin Laden and other top commanders fled, allowing the very leadership OEF aimed to eliminate to regroup. This failure laid the groundwork for a protracted insurgency that defined the next decade of war.
As 2002 progressed, Operation Enduring Freedom transitioned from a short punitive expedition into a multifaceted counterinsurgency and reconstruction campaign. The Bonn Agreement established a political roadmap for Afghanistan, culminating in the creation of the Afghan government under Hamid Karzai. Yet, even as diplomatic efforts to rebuild the Afghan state were underway, U.S. strategy began stretching across multiple fronts. The Pentagon diverted attention to preparations for the Iraq War, leaving Afghanistan understaffed, underfunded, and strategically adrift. The Taliban slowly regrouped in Pakistani sanctuaries, where porous borders, sympathetic networks, and insufficient international pressure allowed them to rebuild manpower, ideology, and operational infrastructure. Operation Enduring Freedom was further shaped by evolving military doctrines. U.S. forces initially focused on kill or capture missions targeting Al-Qaeda fighters, operating in rugged terrain such as the Shai-Kot Valley, where Operation Anaconda in 2002 tested the U.S. military's ability to conduct large-scale mountain warfare. Although the battle ultimately succeeded, it exposed coordination gaps and the necessity of integrating intelligence, air support, and ground maneuver more effectively. As insurgent tactics began shifting, roadside bombs, ambushes, targeted assassinations, U.S. and NATO forces had to adapt, leading to a long learning curve dominated by trial, error, and doctrinal revisions. By 2005 to 2006, the insurgency evolved into a full-scale revival. Taliban operations intensified across southern Afghanistan, fueled by opium revenue, cross-border support networks, and widespread rural frustration. Despite U.S. efforts to promote reconstruction, corruption plagued Afghan institutions, undermining local trust. The Afghan National Army and police, key pillars for long-term stability, were developing slowly, inconsistently, and sometimes infiltrated by insurgents. Meanwhile, NATO expanded its presence, taking command of the International Security Assistance Force, or ISAF. What started as a US-led counterterrorism mission morphed into a multinational counterinsurgency and nation-building effort, with divergent national caveats complicating military cohesion.
Operation Enduring Freedom reached another turning point in 2009 with President Barack Obama's decision to order a dramatic troop surge. The strategy, influenced by counterinsurgency theories championed by General Stanley McChrystal and others, aimed to protect population centers, weaken the Taliban's momentum, and build Afghan governance capacity. At its peak, nearly 100,000 U.S. troops were deployed in Afghanistan, alongside tens of thousands of NATO forces. Major battles unfolded in Helmand and Kandahar, with Marines and Army units fighting for control of Taliban strongholds such as Marja and the Arghandab River Valley. Despite tactical gains and the killing of numerous mid-level insurgent leaders, the Taliban proved resilient, withdrawing into the countryside, blending with local populations, and re-emerging in areas left unprotected once coalition forces rotated out. Parallel to the ground campaign, a silent but transformative component of OEF expanded: the drone war. Unmanned aerial vehicles became central to targeting Al-Qaeda and Taliban leadership in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Precision strikes removed key commanders, disrupted operations, and generated psychological pressure. But the strikes also produced controversy, civilian casualties, diplomatic friction with Pakistan, and debates about legality and transparency. Pakistan's tribal regions became a core battlefield of OEF, highlighting how the conflict's center of gravity increasingly rested outside Afghanistan's borders. By 2011, a symbolic yet deeply significant moment occurred. Osama bin Laden was killed in a U.S. Navy SEAL raid in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Although the operation fell outside Afghanistan, it was embedded within OEF's larger legacy. His death served as a psychological victory for the United States, but did not dismantle the Taliban insurgency, which had long since grown into a decentralized political and military movement operating independently of Al-Qaeda's hierarchy. Operation Enduring Freedom gradually entered a new phase between 2012 and 2014: transition. The United States and NATO began shifting responsibility to Afghan security forces, aiming to reduce foreign military presence while ensuring Afghan self-reliance. Yet challenges remained immense. The Afghan economy remained heavily aid-dependent. Corruption persisted. Insurgent networks continued receiving sanctuary and support across the border. High-profile attacks in Kabul, assassinations of local leaders, and green-on-blue insider attacks all signaled that the Taliban remained potent.
On 31 December 2014, Operation Enduring Freedom formally ended, replaced by Operation Freedom Sentinel and NATO's Resolute Support Mission, focused on advising rather than direct combat. However, the end of OEF did not bring an end to the war itself. The Taliban continued gaining ground in the following years, culminating in their return to power in August 2021 after the U.S. completed its withdrawal. In retrospect, what actually happened during Operation Enduring Freedom is far more complex than commonly depicted. It was a campaign of initial military success, followed by strategic stagnation. A mission that evolved from counterterrorism to nation-building without adequate preparation. A conflict where battlefield victories failed to translate into political stability. A war shaped by international alliances, regional politics, intelligence breakthroughs, and intelligence failures. It reshaped doctrines, redefined counterterrorism strategies, and left enduring debates about interventionism, state building, human rights, and the limits of military power. Operation Enduring Freedom ultimately became a symbol of both American resolve and American overreach,
an operation launched with clear objectives but extended by unclear outcomes. It toppled a regime, disrupted terrorist networks, and transformed Afghanistan's political landscape for 2 decades. Yet its inability to eradicate the Taliban insurgency or build a fully self-sustaining Afghan state reflected deeper structural challenges. Regional dynamics, local grievances, governance deficits, and the inherent difficulty of imposing stability in an environment shaped by decades of war.